And it is time now on this Wednesday morning to take a look at some of our national and international headlines. Remember, I don't have enough time in this particular format to give you all the news, but I do a 30-minute version that's audio only that I email to all of my subscribers. So check that out if you'd like. By the way, in terms of the news, in the Syria conflict, apparently thousands of people have been hanged over the last several years, according to Amnesty International. This in direct contradiction to what the government in Syria has said. Now they've had reports from eyewitnesses saying that literally tens of thousands of people have been hung, basically simply for expressing a view that the government of Syria did not agree with. Now the refugees crossing into the United States are trying to get here, especially from Syria and other places in the Middle East, apparently now have been crossing into Canada on foot despite the freezing temperatures because of the uncertainty of the travel ban. Meanwhile, as you may have heard, Trump is saying that the media has been under-reporting terror attacks, and so the BBC went and published the list that the president talked about and showed where in the international media it actually has been covered. So there may not be the U.S. mainstream media covering it, but there is coverage out there for those who wish to be informed. The Russian ambassador says that the European Union is in a panic right now over the Trump presidency, basically not knowing where they're going to stand, with a lot of them having publicly backed Clinton. The Ayatollah Khamenei has thanked President Trump for showing the real face of the United States. In so doing, of course, he was referring to pictures of the 5-year-old Iranian boy in handcuffs at the airport after the travel ban went into effect. I don't know if you heard about it. There's still a conflict going on in Afghanistan. Dozens were killed in a suicide blast right outside of the Supreme Court there in Kabul. The Pentagon, meanwhile, says that there is no dialogue with Russia about joining forces in Syria, even though they are looking at what's going on right now in terms of the Russian forces and what's going on right now in terms of U.S. forces and U.S.-backed forces. Meanwhile, a new survey in Europe says that most Europeans want to stop migration from Muslim countries, much as Donald Trump is trying to do in the United States. But they actually did this study before Trump's restrictions came in. Also, China has played down Steve Bannon's predictions of war with the United States, saying that it would be crazy to talk about that. And, of course, Steve Bannon did talk about it in a talk show about 2 years ago, in which he basically said that we're going to be at war with China in 5 to 10 years. Russia's envoy sees no sign of NATO's changing its eastward expansion plans. And Nicolas Sarkozy, the former president of France, is going to be tried. He's facing trial over 2012 campaign funding, apparently some misspending allegations. President Obama, in his last year in the White House, accepted $30,000 in gifts, including a replica Super Bowl trophy. And education nominee Betsy DeVos won the Senate confirmation vote only because Vice President Pence stepped in to cast the vote in favor. That's the first time that's ever happened. As you know, CEO Martin Shkreli, accused of price gouging on the AIDS drug, he's now been ordered to cough up $2.6 million after being sued by his former business partner. The Scottish Parliament has voted against Brexit, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about Brexit and Frexit and all of that stuff here in my commentary today. And there was an earthquake this week in Turkey. People are actually speculating that it was a geopolitical or geophysical weapon of some kind. I don't know how paranoid you have to be to think that an earthquake is being used by your enemies for a coup attempt, but that's where it is. Meanwhile, the United States is going to be formally reconsidering its doctrine of the use of nuclear weapons this spring, according to the Army Chief of Staff. And Pravda is predicting that there's only 8 years left for the United States, that the United States will collapse sometime in the next 8 years. On that cheery note, that's what brings us to the end of our news day. Make sure you check out our Alaska news. Once again, the commentary today talking about Brexit and Frexit and maybe a personal exit from other people telling you what to do. See what you think about that. If you got a news tip for me, send me an email, steve@radiofreespeech.com, and please buy a subscription or join me on Patreon. Thanks.